The contest for Constantinople continues. Even though Trebizond was taken out of the picture, it still went through a tumultuous period, while in the west, the Nicaeans, Epirus, Latins and Bulgarians vied for supremacy in the shattered imperial Roman heartlands. So, buckle up and get ready for a fun ride, as the Empire strikes back in today's Eastern Rome Summarized, starring Emperor Ioannes Doukas Vatatzes. While Vatatzes will be the protagonist of this episode, he was not emperor yet in 1215, and we will start looking at Epirus. The half-brother of Michael I Komnenos Doukas, Theodoros, took over his assassinated brother's realm. He had big plans. Although he swore fealty to Nicaea as he was originally under Laskaris' service, he harbored imperial ambitions. By 1216, he conquered Pelagonia and Ohrid from Bulgaria, and made Theodoros Komnenos, a learned Epirot judge, the Archbishop of Ohrid, a post with jurisdiction over the Bulgarian and Serbian churches, who were unhappy to stay subordinate to the Romans. Komnenos and Theodoros refused to recognize Laskaris' Nicaean Patriarch of Constantinople, and the ecclesiastical dispute would play a large role in the political rivalry between the two states. But for now, they stayed on their own turfs. Theodoros continued aggressive Epirot expansion, prompting a reaction from Henry in 1216, but the Latin emperor died before he could act, while in Nicaea, Laskaris chose Vatatzes as a new husband for his daughter Irene, and thus his new heir. The new Latin emperor Peter was crowned and sent to Constantinople, but the Epirot mad lad ambushed and killed him on the way, causing much chaos among them. Now he could attack the kingdom of Thessaloniki. The Pope was horrified, but he somehow got himself under papal protection nonetheless when he was conquering a crusader state at the same time. Theodorus' early actions should show you clearly his nature. He was as bold, ambitious, and oath-breaking as the Latins he fought, and by embracing it, he was able to be victorious over them. From 1218 to 1221, Cladamon, Prosek, Castoria, Beroia, and all but the city of Thessaloniki fell into his hands, while his brother Constantinos secured cities in central Greece. Epirus' ascendancy seemed unchallenged, except for an ecclesiastical debacle. In 1219, Saint Sava of Serbia got the Nicaean Patriarch to create an Archbishopric of Serbia, independent from Ohrid. Komnenos was mad, so he supported his Komnenos Doukas Lord imperial legitimacy over Laskaris as revenge. But now let's check up on the east. Laskaris was busy trying to take Constantinople. After Peter died, his widow Yolanda acted as a regent in Latin Constantinople, and she married her daughter off to Laskaris in 1219 before dying. So he pressed his claims to Constantinople based on inheritance, and in 1220 he tried but failed to take Constantinople by force. This is the first of many real military attempts to take Constantinople by the Romans. Laskaris died in 1221. As the founder of the Empire of Nicaea, he deserves to be remembered. He carved out a state from the splinters of Roman Western Anatolia and united it, and managed to be legitimate in the eyes of his empire and the wider Orthodox world, as seen when Sava turned to him instead of Epirus. Vatatzes succeeded him and continued all his policies, taking the Roman reconquest even further. In 1222, another founder of a Roman state died, Alexios I Megas Komnenos. As a Seljuk vassal, Trebizond during the last years of Alexios' reign is a mystery. We just know the Turks were encroaching more on his fragile empire, a problem inherited by Alexios' successor, his son-in-law, Andronikos I Gidos. The Megadi Komneni found the first successor state and firmly established the Komnenian dynasty in Pontus, carrying on the legacy of the OG Komneni for longer than even the restored Palaiologan Empire. Although Alexios' reign turned badly after the disappearance of his brother David, the creation of his empire of Trebizond was also the creation of an enclave of Romanitas in northeastern Anatolia that will endure until the end of the Ottoman Empire. Pretty grand achievement, all things considered. To continue with Trebizond's story, the Turks were acting up and violated their treaty with Trebizond, so Gidos raided Sinope in retaliation. The Sultan of Rome was pissed and besieged Trebizond in 1223. We do have an abundance of information for the siege, but the gist is that under the stern leadership of their emperor, and with the divine aid of their patron saint Evgenios of Trebizond, the Trebizontides warded off the Turks and won an astounding victory. The Sultan was captured by Gidos, and Trebizond threw off its vassalship status. Like the 717 siege of Constantinople, the Romans reversed an existential threat into a win. Gidos' hard-won independence of Trebizond will only last 8 years, as the looming threat of the Mongols edged ever nearer to the Roman world and threatened to destabilize Anatolia. In 1224, Thessaloniki finally capitulated to Theodoros. This was huge news, as the Crusader kingdom ceased to exist, and Komnenos crowned Theodoros the Emperor of Thessaloniki to spite the Nicaeans. Now I must introduce you to a historiographical term, the Empire of Thessaloniki, used to describe the state of Epirus and their acquisitions in the former Kingdom of Thessaloniki until 1246. It is confusing, like Epirot history, and after 1230, the Komnenos Doukas realm gets even more messy because Theodoros' brashness fractured his empire to two, one based in Thessaloniki and another in the traditional capital of Sparta. But to get back to history, Vatatzes was not happy that his legitimacy was challenged by Epirus and Laskaris' brothers, who seethed about how they should have been emperors and turned to the Latins for help. The Laskaris and Latins faced Vatatzes at the Battle of Phimaninon, but were crushed. The Latin Empire was now fully going downhill. The Pope had planned an explicit crusade against the Christian Romans due to Thessaloniki, but like every crusade, this one went wrong, so the Latin Empire got no help from the West. They completely lost Asia to Vatatzes in 1225. The brilliant emperor proceeded to take control of Aegean islands, and for the first time, the Nicaeans crossed to Europe, conquering Adrianople. Vatatzes wanted to look to Constantinople next, but Emperor Theodoros was also on a conquest streak, taking Adrianople from Nicaea. Like with Trebizond, Nicaea again conflicted with another Roman state instead of teaming up against Constantinople, as when Theodoros tried to assault the city after conquering Adrianople, he wasn't up to the task, so he returned west. By now, he was the most powerful lord in the Balkans, owning most of Thrace. So he spent a few years dealing with internal matters, including forming a guard unit of the famous Tsakonians and improving relations with Western powers, while his archbishop, Komnenos, used his legal talents to work tirelessly for the Epirots. Epirus was unique out of the three Roman states to not have official histories written nor flourish much intellectually, but those early years of the Empire of Thessaloniki was its golden age, and its many surviving documents paint a vivid picture of Epirot's social, legal, and ecclesiastical history. Nicaea did experience a cultural flourishment though, and whereas Epirus had great legal scholars like Komnenos, Nicaea had respected philosophers like Nicephorus Vlemidis and his student Georgios Akropolitis, who is also our main historian for the exile period and would have just arrived at the court of Nicaea around now. Vatatzes himself preferred his administrative capital of Nymphaeon more than his cultural capital of Nicaea, and he wasn't very nerdy, but his court at Nicaea very much was. His empress, Irene Laskarina, and his trusted administrator, Dimitrios Komnenos Doukas, were all erudite and fostered a lively intellectual atmosphere in the empire. Vatatzes promoted learning, among other projects, to strengthen his empire, but kept a low profile for a few years, waiting for Epirus to fall. His patience was rewarded. In 1228, the Latin Emperor Robert died, and Constantinople was ruled by a child. So Theodoros jumped at the chance and prepared to attack. The Latins picked John of Brienne as their regent in 1229, but Tsar Ioannes II of Bulgaria could have been picked as well, and Theodoros wasn't having that. He decided to first defeat Bulgaria before Constantinople and marched on Assen's territory in 1230. Assen, however, was Thessaloniki's ally, and he was rightfully angry at this aggression. What followed was the Battle of Klokotnitsa, where everything Theodoros worked hard to win was lost in one conflict. According to Akropolitis, the haughty Theodoros, who'd never lost before, went to war with all his family and valuables, while Assen stuck the broken alliance treaty on his spear to motivate his army. Needless to say, the overconfident emperor was defeated, his royal court captured, and all his army too. Now, Assen distinguished himself from his uncle, the Roman slayer, and let the common soldiers go home, while for Theodoros' family, he kept them in comfortable captivity. The Empire of Thessaloniki was kept together by the sheer energy and prestige of its now captured emperor, so the empire collapsed. Most of its northern realm fell to Bulgaria, and Thessaloniki was taken by Michael Komnenos Doukas, Theodoros' brother who fled from Klokotnitsa. The new emperor was basically a Bulgarian vassal, and the bastard son of the first ruler of Epirus, Michael II Komnenos Doukas, exiled by Theodoros, quickly seized this chance to recapture the core Epirot territories. Both Constantinos in Aetolia and Michael II in Epirus recognized Manuel's suzerainty, so the emperor gave Michael the title of Despotis, a sign of nominal subordination. As for Theodoros, he will still be important, but his reign as emperor was over. Using his daring and skill, he conquered most of the European provinces and was close to Constantinople before his hubris took him down. If you want to learn a lesson from this video, learn from Theodoros. Do not be arrogant. He was treated fine by Assen, but sometime later he was blinded. One can't help but think Vatatzes had a hand in the blinding of his rival, because the patron Nicaeans soon tried allying with Bulgaria. On the Trebizond side, the advance of the Mongols pushed the Shah of Khwarizm, Jalal ad-Din, to Anatolia. Jalal invaded Rome, and Guido supported him, but the Turks crushed him and punished the Trapezuntines with vassalage again. Jalal fled, but he was killed in 1231, and his domains were annexed by the Turks and the Mongols, who now shared a border. A conflict between these two was imminent, so Rome and Nicaea agreed to respect each other's borders. Now Vatatzes began his operations in the west seriously. With both Trebizond and Epirus out of the race for Constantinople, Roman restoration fell to Nicaea. Vatatzes subdued all the Aegean islands in Latin hands, and also the independent ruler of Rhodes, Leon Gavalas, by 1233. He negotiated with Asen for an alliance against Latins, agreeing on independence for the Bulgarian Church, like for Serbia. The treaty was solidified at last in 1235 in Lampsakos, with the marriage of Vatatzes' son, the future Theodoros II Laskaris, with Asen's daughter Elena. Then immediately the allies overran Latin Thrace and besieged Constantinople. Meanwhile in Trebizond, Andronikos I Gidos died, and was succeeded by Alexios Megas Komnenos' eldest son, Ioannes I Axouchos Komnenos, whose reign we know nothing about except that he was trampled to death while playing polo 3 years later. Gidos was a decent emperor. He saved Trebizond from Turkish conquest and raised its status, although this was lost later. It was also in his reign that the cult of the patron saint of Trebizond, Evgenius, became important. In the west, the contest for Constantinople between Vatatzes, Asen, and John wasn't going well. Due to the winter season, the coming of a Venetian fleet, and the differing ambitions of Nicaea and Bulgaria, Vatatzes had to withdraw in 1236. Things got worse when John died in 1237, and Asen saw that he might become the regent of Constantinople again, so he ditched Vatatzes like Emperor Theodoros once ditched him. Asen also fell in love with Theodoros' daughter, Irene, and married her, so he freed his blind father-in-law Theodoros, against the wishes of Vatatzes. Theodoros snuck into Thessaloniki and ousted Manuel from power to place his own son Ioannes on the throne. Manuel fled to Asia, into the arms of Vatatzes. Now let's introduce another Emperor Manuel. In 1238, after Axouchos died playing polo, the throne of Trebizond passed to Ioannikios, probably a brother, but another brother, Manuel I Megas Komnenos, the greatest Trapezuntine emperor of the 13th century, usurped the throne. To him, we owe the prosperity and the stunning Hagia Sophia of Trebizond. But for now, Manuel ruled as a quiet Seljuk vassal. Meanwhile, Vatatzes supported Emperor Manuel of Thessaloniki to take back his throne in 1239. He took Pharsalos, and Theodoros, although blind, could see Manuel had popular support, so the brothers split the empire, while Michael II ran amok and tried to secure support from the Germans against his uncles. He was not alone in having good relations with the German Emperor Frederick II, as Vatatzes also wrote frequently to him. Frederick sympathized with these Romans as victims of the papacy, and he recognized Nicaea's claim to Constantinople, while both Michael and Vatatzes sent men to fight for him in Italy. The Pope meanwhile planned a crusade against Vatatzes that Frederick tried his best to hinder, because he disliked Vatatzes, who wrote a letter mocking the papacy and exposing the hypocrisies of the Latins. Baldwin II, after pawning the sacred relic of the crown of thorns to Venice, got enough money to lead this rabble of a crusade against Vatatzes in 1240. He took Cerullos, and that's it. Vatatzes didn't even bother with this pathetic show and left the fort to Baldwin for now. His patience again paid off. He knew Bulgaria was the strongest force in the Balkans, so he waited until Asen died in 1241 to make his move on Thessaloniki. Michael II also made a move that year, for a different reason. His uncle Manuel died, so he seized Thessaly before anyone could react. Now, the emperor in Thessaloniki was isolated, surrounded by a rogue despot of Epirus, Bulgaria, and Vatatzes, who conquered eastern Macedonia by 1242. It's clear he planned to capture Thessaloniki on this expedition, as he tricked Theodoros to leave his son Ioannes, and many prominent Nicaeans accompanied Vatatzes, including his son Tonikis and Megas Domestikos Andronikos Palaiologos, father of the future Emperor Michael VIII. However, he only got Ioannes to trade the imperial title for that of Despot this time, as the Mongols caused some massive geopolitical changes. In 1243, The Sultanate of Rome faced the Mongols at Koshidakh with Trapezuntine auxiliaries. The Turks lost, and now both Rome and Trebizond became Mongol vassals, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing for Manuel Megas Komnenos. Switching from a Turkish vassal to a Mongol one meant he was now equal with the Sultan, and the Mongols had bigger concerns than Trebizond. Vatatzes quickly returned to Asia to secure his empire before going back to his European conquest. With the deaths of both Ioannes of Thessaloniki and the child Tsar of Bulgaria, whose successors were both less competent, taking Thrace was a piece of cake. By 1246, he had conquered much of Bulgaria and Thessaloniki, and just by deposing the hated despot Demetrius of Thessaloniki, voila, conquest complete. Now he owned the territories of Theodoros Komnenos Doukas at his height, except for Michael II's lands. A stranglehold was formed on Constantinople. Michael Palaiologos now ruled Thessaloniki for Nicaea, and his son, Michael, got Ceres and Melanichon. Meanwhile, Manuel voyaged to Mongolia to pay respect to Guyuk Khan, the only Roman emperor to travel that far east. With the Mongols disrupting the Near East, traditional trading centers in Mesopotamia and Syria became less important than hubs in the north, like Trebizond, where trade exploded during Manuel's reign. He was able to mint so many coins in his image that Georgians called their currency Kir Manueli. All this prosperity and wealth allowed Trebizond to improve its army and aim for Constantinople again, while Rome gradually lost power to the numerous Anatolian Turkic beyliks. The only western rival for Vatatzes was Michael II of Epirus. His consort, Saint Theodora of Arta, favored alliance with Nicaea and betrothed her son Nicephorus to Vatatzes' granddaughter Maria in 1249. Sadly, her husband was influenced by Theodoros, who was still around to plot against Nicaea, so they tried but failed to take Thessaloniki in 1251. Vatatzes quickly crossed to Europe in 1252, engaging in many conflicts with the Epirots, but the war in Macedonia was a stalemate until two Epirot generals, including Despina, Theodoros' brother, defected to Nicaea. Michael ceded all his Macedonian holdings and gave Theodoros and Nicephorus to Vatatzes. The latter became a despot and went back to Epirus, while the former, the legendary Theodoros Komnenos Doukas, the mad lad of Epirus, died in Nicaea in 1253, to Vatatzes' relief, although he did not have much time on earth either and would follow his Epirot rival a year later. Manuel of Trebizond now began taking action for his plan to recapture Constantinople. In 1253, the King of France was on crusade in Lebanon, and Manuel sent him an embassy proposing for an alliance against Nicaea and Rome. The French declined, but advised Manuel to ally with the Latin Empire. But seeing how alliance with them may have been the downfall of his uncle David, Manuel didn't do it. Then in 1254, he reconquered Sinope, lost by his father Alexios. This was a solid step on the path to Constantinople, and it cut the Turks off from the Black Sea. Meanwhile, Vatatzes died after having justly ruled for 33 years and paved way for the Nicaean reconquest of Constantinople. His prudent statesmanship and patience were rewarded as his rivals tired each other out, making Nicaean conquest extremely easy. Apart from being an excellent ruler, Vatatzes also cultivated a reputation of mercy and holiness among his people. He was canonized as a saint, and his cult persisted in Ionia until the 20th century, truly one of the best emperors. His son Theodoros II Doukas Lascaris now took the throne, a refined man educated under the greatest Roman intellectuals at the Nicaean court. One only needed to look at Doukas and his writings to admire how developed Byzantine thought and Hellenism were in the late 13th century, but for today we focus on Theodoros' political, not intellectual activity, which deserves a video all on its own. However, for all his erudition, he was unpopular among the learned elites, nor did he trust them much, favoring men of low birth like his friend Diodius Musalon. Even his own tutor, Acropolites, turned on him when it was clear that the old elites championed by Michael Palaiologos will win the Nicaean class conflict, and at the start of Theodorus' reign, his teacher Vlemides refused to become patriarch and crown him, possibly due to some of these elite concerns. So the emperor elevated the monk Arsenius instead, but this will cause a schism in the Palaiologan period. Now crowned, Theodoros rushed to Bulgaria as Tsar Michael II Asen took Vatatzes' Bulgarian conquests in 1255. The emperor counterattacked, routing the Bulgarians, but his generals like Alexios Strategopoulos showed incompetence and complicated the campaign. Despite this, the Bulgarian campaign was a success, and the Romans occupied most forts in the Rhodope Mountains. Asin attacked again in 1256, but Theodoros repelled him and made peace. Then he turned on his elite. He imprisoned Strategopoulos and blinded more important men. Michael Palaiologos was suspected of treason and defected to the Turks to escape his wrath, so the aristocrats began plotting. At Nikephoros and Maria's wedding, Theodoros forced his new ally Michael II to seize Dyrrhachion and Servia. His gains in his short reign weren't bad, but the problem of his conflict with the aristocracy was going to be his dynasty's downfall. Palaiologos resided with the Turks now, and even fought with them against the Mongols, which ended in defeat. So the Sultan sought refuge in Nicaea in 1257, and Palaiologos returned, aware that Theodoros might harm him. He gradually became the discontent elite's leader. Michael II in Epirus wasn't happy with Theodoros either, and now, allied with the Albanians and Serbs, took Nicaea's Balkan possessions west of Thessaloniki. Theodoros became ill, so he was unable to lead troops in person, and sent Palaiologos. But in his final years, he fell to paranoia and recalled Palaiologos before more could be done. Manfred of Sicily took Dyrrhachion in 1258, so Michael II allied with him and the Prince of Achaea for a more serious war against Nicaea. Meanwhile, Theodoros died and named his son Ioannes IV Laskaris his heir, with Muzalon as regent. He forced the aristocrats to swear allegiance to Muzalon before dying, but his paranoid actions in life have already determined his son and friend's fate. Theodoros ruled as well as he could for 4 years. He might have been able to achieve more had he not alienated his own elite. Before his body went cold, the aristocrats rallied around Palaiologos and brutally murdered Muzalon in church, the result of sheer hatred piling up for years of Theodoros' preferential treatment of new blood. Palaiologos became Ioannes' regent instead in 1259, although I should say the true emperor. The boy had no power, and from now on it was already pretty much the Palaiologan era. Palaiologos was a scheming bastard, but a good strategist, and it would be he who finished the Nicaean reconquest. Epirus, Sicily, and Achaea's alliance threatened Nicaea, but Palaiologos was able to decisively counter them in what is commonly known as the Battle of Pelagonia, which seems more to be a series of skirmishes than an actual battle, and our sources give very different accounts of what happened. The gist is that Nicaea was victorious, and the Prince of Achaea, the Latin Empire's final hope, was captured, and the Nicaeans conquered the capital of Epirus, Arta, under Strategopoulos. Michael II fled but retook Arta the next year, and captured Strategopoulos. Michael was undeterred. Constantinople was literally within his palm, but the siege in 1260 failed, and he returned to Asia frustrated. He allied with Genoa for naval aid in 1261, elevating Genoa to the commercial status of Venice, but a miracle happened, and the city returned to Roman hands by accident. Strategopoulos was released from Epirot captivity and sent with 800 men to keep an eye on the Latins while Palaiologos planned his next move. In Selymbria, the Nicaeans learned that the whole Latin army and fleet were away, and that there was a secret passage into Constantinople, so Strategopoulos seized the opportunity and snuck in with his men. The Romans surprise attacked the Latins and regained control of their lost capital for good on July 25, 1261. Baldwin II fled in disgrace. The empire of the Romans has been restored. Exile, at least for the Nicaeans, now ended. What a dramatic period. We will pick up with Palaiologos' triumphant entry into Constantinople and his establishment of a dynasty next time. We already took for too long, and we barely scratched the surface of this fascinating era. The different imperial ideologies, claims for legitimacy, and systems of government springing up in 3 corners of the Roman world really deserve more coverage, but just breezing over the events of these years is a lengthy subject. I hope I have done some justice to the figures of this era, who are very ignored because, let's be honest, 1204 to 1261 was a hot mess and no one likes a mess. The reconquest of Constantinople by Nicaea solidified its reputation as the true successor to Rome after 1204, but hopefully now you see how the other 2 states also were right to claim otherwise, and should not be dismissed as mere rump states. The Romans persevered against yet another existential crisis and returned home triumphant. Now it's time for us to leave them in their glory before the last chapter in Roman history takes place. See you soon when we begin the Palaiologan story.